I asked 5 of my most successful property investing clients 3 questions. Number 1, what was it that held them back from investing? Number 2, what was it that helped them overcome their challenges? And then number 3, what would they tell themselves if they had to go back and do things differently? Hi, I'm Nero from Investment Rise, and with all the recent market changes, with the economic growth slowing down, with the Reserve Bank of Australia dropping interest rates, with there being so much confusion about which markets are going to rise and which aren't, I see a lot of people out there who want to invest in property, who know they should invest in property, but who just are so afraid to take the plunge because they're afraid of making a mistake. So what I did recently was I went back and interviewed 5 of my most successful clients who've all built $1 million plus property portfolios. Many of these portfolios are positively cash flowed, which means they're paying them an income. And I wanted to know what was it that made the difference. And so in this video, I'm going to share with you their answers, because my aim here really is to, I guess, help show you that those who've taken the plunge, those who've created large property portfolios, had, and some of them even still have, the very same concerns that you have. So let's get into it. Number 1, the bus driver who in his 50s started investing. His major concern when he first started, and I've got some notes here, he said was he was scared. He'd made a mistake before. He'd bought at the top of the market and he'd held for as long as he could, but then he had to sell before the market took off again and he'd lost money. He was in his mid-50s and he couldn't afford to make another mistake, and so he's petrified by fear. So then I asked him, well, when you were so scared and you were in your 50s, you knew you couldn't afford to make a mistake, what was it that made you try again and look to start investing again? And he said, because although he was afraid of investing and making a mistake, he was even more afraid of not investing and missing out on the opportunities that investing gave him, and as a result, not having enough for retirement despite working hard for 40 years of his life. Right? So in other words, yes, he was still afraid, and in fact, even today when I speak to him, he's often still afraid, but he knew that not investing, not getting the right help would have far more consequences. And when I asked him what would he do differently if he was to advise himself or advise someone else in his position, he said, don't let fear get the best of you. Yes, all investing carries risk, absolutely. Investing isn't something where you can just do it blindfolded, but his advice would be get the right help, but don't let fear hold you back. Then we have the single lady who has now got a property portfolio of, I think, 3 in investment properties. When I asked her, what was it that held you back? She said, Nero, I knew I needed to invest. I knew I had the capacity to invest, but I was just too busy at work. And work was so exhausting. At the end of the day, I didn't have time to do my research. I didn't want to spend my weekends schlepping around from open house to open house. So I just let it get away from me for too long. And then when I asked her, okay, so if you're too busy at work and you're busier now than you've ever been, what made the difference? And she said, well, I was busy, I still am, but I knew again that if I did not invest in property, if I did not take advantage of the opportunities right now, I would be looking back in 10 years' time, wishing I'd taken the plunge, wishing I had bought property at that time and I didn't use time, and that I didn't use my lack of time as an excuse. And so then I asked her the third question, which was, what is it that she would do differently if she was advise herself or advise someone else in her position? She said again, don't be so busy working that you miss out on the opportunities to ultimately get rich. Okay, so that was her advice. Mind you, if you would like some further assistance with investing in property, go to nerocall.com, where I give you a free detailed case study, and then you can book in for a free consult if that's what you'd like. But moving on. We then have the aged care worker. Now this was an interesting story. So she again was in her 50s. She's single as well. And when I asked her, what is it that stopped you from investing? She said, you know, I didn't think I was smart enough. I didn't think I was good enough. And I just didn't think that people like me, or people like herself, bought and invested in property. And I said, so then if you thought that people like you, I'm not sure what that meant, but people like herself didn't invest in property, what made her take the plunge? What was it that helped her overcome her internal thought pattern? And she said, because I looked around at other people not in my field of work, other people who started investing in property, and I saw that they were successful. I thought, what if? And it wouldn't hurt to try, wouldn't hurt to speak to people and start getting some different information so I can make a more informed decision. And so when I said, so what is it that you would tell people in your situation who maybe think that they're not capable of investing or people like them don't invest? She said, go out there and get some help, get some guidance, get some new information so then you can make a better decision. All right? And then we have the IT professionals. Now, these guys have, I think, 4 or 5 properties. They've paid off their home. He, as the primary income earner, has been able to leave his job recently, try a new business idea in his 50s, knowing full well that if it doesn't work, he's still set up financially. Okay? So when I asked him, I said, what was it that held you back? He said he didn't think it was possible to create wealth through property. He thought it was property was a game only for developers or for the mega rich. And he said someone like him who was doing well in life, was on a good income, he said, I didn't think it was possible for someone like me and my wife and our family to create wealth through property. And I said, so what was it then that made the difference? Because when you don't think something's possible, you're never going to explore it, are you? So I asked him, what was it that helped you overcome that belief? And he said, he had a conversation with a friend, and that friend was in the same position as he had been 10 years ago, and they were still doing the same thing for work, but his friend had built a large portfolio over the last 10 years and was now in a position where his wife could stop working, and that was the trigger for him. He said, if my friend could do it, all of a sudden I started to wonder, well, why can't I? Right? And that was the thing that made the difference for him. It's to see someone else in his position achieve the results that he wanted to, and yet he hadn't done the same thing. But he started to explore it. So when I asked him, okay, so what would your advice be? I sort of knew what the answer would be. I said, what would you advise someone in your position? He said, find out what's possible for you as soon as possible. Don't let your beliefs about what you think is possible based on what you do. Because he said, Niro, I was in IT. I knew all about it. I think it was IT infrastructure. So I know all about that. I don't know anything about finance. I'm sure I'm good with numbers, he said, but I don't know anything about finance or investing and the whole process. And it was all become confusing for me. So because it was confusing, I just thought it wasn't possible. And so he said his advice to himself, if he had to go back in time, would be start earlier, find out earlier what's possible, get some advice, get the right people around you. Don't try and make the decision on your own, because ultimately you don't have all the information to make the best decision. All right. And then number 5, and this was the one that really intrigued me. He's a doctor. I've helped him build a fairly large property portfolio, and I asked him, what was it that held you back from investing? He didn't start investing until he was in his 40s, although he had the capacity much earlier on. He said, Niro, I'm actually embarrassed to say this, but I was too busy working in order to get rich. I said, what do you mean? He said, I woke up every day. I'm going to see patients. I'm at the hospital. At the end of the day, I'm wiped out. Weekends, I'm working often many weekends. So I'm just constantly exhausted, wiped out. I'm busy. Sure, I'm earning a good income, but I'm paying was paying a fair one in tax, and I just didn't know a way forwards. And I said, so then, what was it that made the difference? And he said, again, he saw another doctor, start the process of building a property portfolio. And he saw that this doctor was able to do it, his colleague was able to do it while still working the same hours as he did, because he had the right help. And so he said the advice he'd give to anyone is, don't be so busy earning an income that you forget to take care of your financial future, your financial situation. And I thought that was really, really interesting, because these 5 people have all gone on to create large property portfolios, but they all had the same fears that so many people I speak to today who are able to invest, who want to invest, but are just unable to pull the trigger because they let their fears hold them back. But these 5 people, and they're 5 of many who we've been able to help over the years, they were willing to overcome their fears. They were willing to pull the trigger. And today, it didn't happen instantly. It didn't happen in 6 months. It took a few years, yes, because property investing is a long-term game. So that's why you want to start as soon as possible. But today, some few years after they started, they're all in much better financial positions than if they hadn't done anything. So I really hope that this video helps you. And if you have these sorts of concerns, let me know in the comments field below, and I'll aim to answer them either via a response in the comments or even by in future videos, because my aim really is to, as I said, share with you that almost everyone out there has the same fears of not being good enough, not being able to, thinking property investing is too complicated, right? The difference is the ones who make it are the ones who are able to overcome their fears and pull the trigger, while the ones who then look back with regret going, God, I wish I had, are the ones who never take the time to go out there and get the right help. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you liked this video and you found it valuable and you're thinking you might like my help to help you find an investment property, then head on over to nerocall.com. That's nerocall.com for a free case study. And then if you like what you see, you can book in for a free half-hour phone consult with me personally, where you can find out more about whether I'm the right person to help you with your property investing. Either way, thanks again for watching.